The purpose of this video is to provide you with some additional guidance as you approach the multicultural self-exploration paper. As you recall in the syllabus, this particular assignment has two different deadlines. One is the outline for the paper, and then the second deadline refers to the actual larger paper, the AP style paper that you'll submit towards the end of the semester. This video is intended to supplement the information that's in the syllabus. So as you get started on this particular assignment, I would encourage you to read through the guidelines that are in the syllabus as a good starting point. And then what I'm going to focus on today is actually the outline assignment. And there are some, I'm sharing my screen with you. There is some guidelines. There are some guidelines posted on that assignment. If you look at Blackboard and then under the Assessments tab, you'll find the document that I'm going to be going through here today. So again, this is just to supplement and kind of give you some additional guidance as you're starting to approach the assignment. So the outline, the reason why I am requiring an outline is I'm trying to make the assignment a little bit easier in terms of kind of giving you some support, some scaffolding as you work towards the larger paper. So the outline is intended to be helpful. It's not intended to be busy work or just another step that's not useful. It's intended to actually guide you through the process of writing the larger paper. So again, as we look at this guidelines document that I've got pulled up, an outline again is a writing tool. It really helps as you begin writing any sort of large written document. It helps kind of guide that writing and helps you see what I call the big picture before you get into kind of the nitty-gritty of the writing. So a well-constructed outline can actually be very helpful in saving you lots of time. So lots of rewriting and things. So let's go ahead and dive into what the outline will look like for this particular assignment. So as it talks about in these guidelines, for this outline, the main headings are already established for you. So I'm already kind of giving those to you. You don't have to create those. And if you scroll down here to the bottom of the page, you'll see all of these in bold. All of those terms in bold are actually the headings that you'll notice correspond with the information that's in the syllabus. So you'll have those headings already, and I've kind of condensed them down. So in the syllabus, you're asked to talk about how you identify culturally, racially, etc. And so that heading I've titled there racial / cultural identification. In the syllabus, as another example, you're asked to talk about the likes of your identity as either culturally, ethnicity. You're asked to talk about what you like about that. And so the next heading I have here is likes about ethnicity / culture. So you can see that continues throughout the entire, all of the required headings. So for this particular paper, usually as an author, you're going to need to determine what the headings are. For this particular paper, I've already done that for you. So that's already done. Okay? So you don't have to do that. So I've got that all described here, just as I've just described it to you. So beyond putting the headings in your outline, so this is what you're going to be graded on, and then I'll go through the criteria specifically. You're also going to be required to include supporting information under each heading. So these are bullet points that are going to guide you through what's ultimately going to be in your larger paper, and you'll have at least one or two maybe bullet points under each heading. So I've got a few examples of bullet points here in these guidelines. So for example, if you take a look at, in this example, the message received main heading, and then we've got an example bullet point underneath the messages received heading. In this particular example, what this author is saying is that they were told not to look at people with disabilities because it was considered rude, and that they were going to incorporate a story of shopping with their mom at Kmart, and that was going to kind of demonstrate their point. So I, as your instructor, I understand that, okay, they've thought about that. They understand, they know what this particular author knows what they're going to be writing about. They've even got an example, which is great. You could go a step further with, so you're going to do that for each heading. You could go a step further and actually include the citations that you're going to use. So we'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. But what you're going to turn into me is going to include each heading and then at least a bullet point underneath each. So that's where you're going to turn into me. Okay, so how is this going to be graded? So let's go ahead and look at that section of these guidelines. So your outline will be graded as follows. So you are going to be required to include all the headings that we just talked about. So those are listed out in the syllabus. They're also on the guidelines. You're also going to be required, and you're going to be graded on including all supporting details under the headings. So the example that we just went through with about told not to look at people with disabilities because it was considered rude, and then the author was going to include a story. That would be an example of supporting details. So again, we bulleted those out. The third item that I'm going to be looking for when I'm grading your outline is a list of at least 3 credible resources. So when I say credible, I mean things like peer-reviewed publications. So not Wikipedia, not newspaper clippings, things like that, but actual journal articles that have been reviewed by professionals in the field that have been vetted for quality and relevance. At this point, I'm assuming most of you are very familiar with how to search for peer-reviewed literature. If you have questions about that, you can certainly go to the library, or if all else, come to me about that. And then, so they need to be credible. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. And then they also need to be relevant. So something that is kind of unrelated to what you're talking about, maybe it's credible, maybe it's peer reviewed, but if it's not relevant to how you're plugging it into your outline and ultimately your paper, that's going to cost you in terms of points. So if you're talking about your identity as a female, as a woman, and you plug in something, a peer-reviewed article that's totally unrelated, that doesn't even have a connection, you don't sell me on what that connection is, that's where you kind of get docked on the relevant piece. Okay, so they need to be peer-reviewed and they need to be relevant, so credible and relevant. And you can just go ahead and list those sources at the end of your outline. So you can list those out. It's okay that you do that. You should have kind of the full, or you'll need to have the full reference at the end of the outline. Okay, that's C. And then D, so then once you've got those references, what you're going to do is you're going to cite those references within your paper, within your outline, wherever it applies. So let's say you're talking about some of the things that, let's say, you like about your culture, and that one of the things you talked about with your culture is that education is really, really valued, and that that in your particular situation, that was something that was really pushed. And so you could find an article that talked about the implications of that. Maybe there's sort of some stress associated with that, some added pressure that you might be feeling as a result of that, and there's some literature to support that. And then you would provide an in-text citation wherever that shows up in your paper. So D is asking you to actually put that in-text citation wherever it's relevant in your paper. Okay? And then Again, for the in-text citations, as it's listed there on D, you only need author and year for that. And then finally, the final requirement is E. So this is a demonstration that you are recognizing new perspectives about your own cultural rules and biases. So this will be judged on the basis of you having supporting details that are actually going into a little bit more depth than just maybe stating facts. So, for example, in this example, just by someone under, the author in this example, under messages received, that they put together that they were told that, looking at people with disabilities was considered rude. So they were told not to do that. That tells me that they are thinking about that they have kind of made that connection, that was a message that they received. And then that would be an indicator that they have gained some new perspectives about this particular situation, this particular topic. Same thing with the me as a patient section here with the example that I've got pulled up. So if they're making a connection that it takes time for them to build trust, and they might not want to share some negative behaviors that they're experiencing. They kind of have this perfectionist attitude and are perfectionists, and they don't want to kind of reveal their limitations. That would be an insight that I could tell they're kind of thinking about that. So those are the types of things that I'm looking for when I'm judging letter E and kind of giving credit for letter E. Okay? So those are so again, this video was intended to provide you with some additional guidance related to this assignment. I again would encourage you to look at the guidelines that are posted under the assessment tab, as well as the syllabus now that you're ready to kind of start this assignment. And please definitely do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions.